Let's look at how we can interact with an HTML page using JavaScript. Here I have a simple HTML page. It's a swim time converter that for a 100-yard race can convert it to an equivalent time for a 100-meter race. So you'd put the time in here. Maybe I had a 52 flat, and what I want is to be able to access this 52.00 inside my JavaScript when I click on this button so I can convert it to a meter time. Let's look at the code here. We have this HTML and we have a yard time input box that we're putting the 52 in, and what we want to do is be able to access that yard time. Well, we can do that and access it inside the script tag by using something called the document object model. All of this HTML gets parsed into an object model by the browser. So every time you load your HTML page to display it in your browser, it creates DOM objects that you can use inside your JavaScript. Each element becomes accessible as an object that has properties, methods, and events. We're just going to learn about a few properties and methods that we can use to interact with our page using our JavaScript. The DOM can be used to get, change, add, and delete HTML elements, which can affect the display or functionality of the web page. So how do we use this DOM? Well, we can access the DOM by using a variable that is created by the browser named document. For example, we could say document.getElementById, give it the ID of the element. In this case, it's swim header. So if we look at our HTML, we can see our header 1 has an ID of swim header. So we can access this particular element by using the getElementById method on the document. That finds that element, and in this case, it's saying take the inner HTML of that element and replace it with broken swim time converter. Well, let's go ahead and try that. Let's take this code, paste it into our function. It's going to say get that element swim header, change the inner HTML. Well, what is the inner HTML? Well, the inner HTML is all the HTML between the tags of the ID that we're asking for. So the word swim time converter. And let's convert that to broken swim time converter. And I'll just correct these quotation marks to make them the straight ones that the code can interpret. So if I go ahead and save this, and then refresh that in my browser, when I click on the button, you can see that it was able to interact with and update my page using the DOM element for the swim header and changing the inner HTML to be a new value. So you can see that our swim time converter here has been updated using JavaScript to be broken swim time converter. I just demonstrated how this code, document.getElementById, of the ID swim header, change the inner HTML to broken swim time converter, can change what's on our HTML page. Not surprisingly, programmers found this long syntax to be cumbersome. So a library was created that allowed us to shorten that syntax. jQuery is a library, and once we include the script tag in our code, we can use the special $ syntax to get the element by ID. This is just a function named $, it does exactly what we did before. It finds that HTML with the tag swim header and replaces the inner HTML with the string broken swim time converter. jQuery was very popular for a while, but browsers have improved such that you do not need to use jQuery anymore. You can directly access the elements from the browser. Each element that has been given an ID will have a corresponding JavaScript variable created in the browser. So we can simply use that ID as a variable name. For example, we could just say swim header dot inner HTML is assigned the value updated swim time converter. Let's try that. Last time I put the code inside the function, but this time I'm going to put it above the function. I'm going to say swim header because that's the name of my ID. Then I have to use the same property inner HTML. So I say dot inner HTML equals the value updated swim time converter. See what happens when I save this and refresh. Interesting, it happened immediately. It still says swim time converter in the header, but when I open the page, it automatically goes to updated. Well, because we put the script outside of the function, it's executing this line of code immediately when the page opens, and we don't even see the original header, we just see the updated header. When we changed it to broken swim time converter, that code was inside this function, so this function was created. This is a function definition, so that was run when the page was open, but because it's a function definition, it's not executed until we call it. We didn't call it until we clicked on the button. So when we click on the button, we'll see it still works to change it to broken swim time converter. Well, it's a little more powerful with the button, so let's move it into the area with the button. If we go ahead and save that, now when we refresh it, we have the original header, and when we click on the button, we can see that that header is changing.